This is a podcast from the London Accordion Orchestra. For more information, visit our website at www.londonao.co.uk. I'm Sam Cullen, Principal Bass Player for LAO. In this episode, I'll be talking to our music director Ian Watson about recording the album Flight. In July 2016, the London Accordion Orchestra performed at the London Irish Centre for a joint concert with the Castletown Accordion Orchestra from Ireland. On its own, this concert would have made an exciting weekend. 24 hours later, LAO made history by becoming the first accordion orchestra to make an album at the world-famous Abbey Road Studios. At 9 a.m. on a sunny Sunday morning, the wheels of accordion cases rattled over the iconic zebra crossing and the players of LAO arrived in Studio 2. The sense of anticipation was palpable amongst the players. After a hearty Sunday breakfast in the canteen, there was no time to spare for photos or selfies. Just yet. Our conductor had arrived early to help the engineers set up the chairs and microphones. The engineers couldn't quite visualise what 35 accordionists would look like, yet alone sound like. All eyes and ears were set out on our music director Ian Watson as soon as the click track started in the cans and the orchestra were focused and ready to record. Time was of the essence as we had just 10 hours to record a whole album. That was an extract from the first movement of Flight, written by Ian Watson, who joins me now. Ian, hello.
Hi Sam, how you doing?
Very well, thanks. That was your piece Flight that we just heard then. Where did the inspiration for Flight come from?
Well, the orchestra was playing a big concert at St John's Smith Square in central London in 2015, and we had the Nuremberg Accordion Orchestra as our guests. So I wanted to write a piece for that concert in particular and the particular acoustics of St John's Smith Square, which is quite a cavernous, big concert hall with quite a long echo. So that was the starting point for it, and then I sort of had various ideas about the piece, all of which got thrown out because I didn't like them. And then I went on holiday to the north of Norfolk. And whilst out walking, there were lots of the sort of bird sanctuary, bird reserve area, and I was just amazed by the sort of musicality of the bird song in that particular part of the world. So that's when I hit upon writing this piece about the sort of migration process that birds go through. So it starts off quite tranquil, and then in the second movement it's the sort of perils of the migration itself, and then the third movement is the triumphant arrival.
The album Flight was made up of new works written for LAO by British composers. Is commissioning new pieces important for the direction of the orchestra?
Yes, vitally important for the orchestra. I mean, there's not a huge amount of good music around, new music for accordion orchestras. So I think it's not only something that I like to do, it's something that I just feel is vital to do if the accordion orchestra as a form is to survive, attract younger players. It's the only way really to keep to keep the form going, because if there's just old repertoire, as good as some of it is, the art form will die out. So yes, commissioning is vital. We've commissioned lots of pieces over the years from different British composers that I've got to know through other aspects of my work, and premiered them at various festivals and competitions and concerts across Europe. I think just because it was the first piece we commissioned, one that stands out in my mind is Jason Carr's Suite Europa, which we commissioned in 2012, and I think Jason finished it late that year, I think, and then we played it in Innsbruck in Austria in 2013. And because that was the first time we commissioned a composer to write for the orchestra, that still remains a sort of big milestone for the orchestra, I think.
Let's have a listen to a clip from Jason Carr's Suite Europa. That was part of Moscow, the first of 4 movements from Jason Carr's piece, Europa, written for LAO in 2013. Next, we've got Carnival by Matthew Scott. When you asked Matthew to write for LAO, how did you pitch it to him?
Well, I was working with Matthew at the National Theatre in London. Matthew was then head of music at the National Theatre, and I knew that he wrote, and I thought it would be really interesting to have... What I always try and do with commissioning is try to get people who aren't ingrained in the accordion orchestra world. So bringing in ideas from people who write for the stage or write for film, and also classical composers that haven't written for accordion orchestra before. So it's not always going to sound like your traditional accordion orchestra style of writing. And I asked Matthew for a piece for the Innsbruck Festival in 2016 this time, a short piece. We already had 2 other pieces on the programme, so just to fit into the time limit that we were allowed, a sort of short, almost like an extended fanfare.
by Matthew Scott. All the composers joined us in the studio on the day, including film composer Stuart Hancock, who wrote a piece that also had its world premiere at the 2016 World Accordion Championships in Innsbruck, Austria. What was your first impressions of the piece when you heard it?
Well, it's always a key moment when you've commissioned a piece and you get to hear or see the score or hear a computer version of how it may sound. It's exciting, and it's a bit terrifying as well, because you've commissioned the piece and you sort of get what you're given in this, in the film world, and for stage, it's composers are very directed as to what's needed. But with commissioning works for concert works, you can give a sort of overview of what sort of piece maybe you'd like, but often I just like to let the composers have a free hand at what they'd like to write. So yeah, the moment when you get the score or get a MIDI version of it is exciting and terrifying at the same time. When I heard Rhapsody, I couldn't have been more delighted. It was exactly what I'd hoped when commissioning Stuart. As a film music composer, he's able to sort of conjure all sorts of emotions, but very clear emotions and very clear thematic writing, and particularly the middle section with the sort of solo for vibraphone and one accordion, which then gradually builds to 8 accordions and then to the full orchestra. It's a wonderful sort of romantic middle section to the piece.
That was a clip from Stuart Hancock's piece Rhapsody, which you can hear at the start of the podcast. After a fun and productive morning, the players had half an hour for photos on the zebra crossing and on the steps to the main entrance before continuing to complete the 13 tracks. We finished up this incredible day by recording your piece 2012 with members of our intermediate orchestra joining the main orchestra. What were your overall impressions of the day?
It was a fantastic day for many different reasons. I mean, one of the reasons LAO exists is to provide audiences and players with experiences that they couldn't get anywhere else. So I think that's what really makes LAO stand out as an amateur orchestra, is the constant ability to give players these experiences of playing at the National Theatre or recording at Abbey Road or doing composer workshops at the Royal Academy of Music. Just really interesting and diverse projects. The film music concert that we did, for instance, in January, which came just before the very serious project at the Royal Academy of Music. We did a film music concert where I encouraged the orchestra to dress up as their favourite film characters, and we had Shreks and nuns and all sorts of things, which was very good fun. It's quite shocking in some ways to see members of the orchestra as Shrek, and there's a couple of nuns as well, which sort of blew my mind. But so yeah, the point of that ramble basically is to say that Abbey Road was exactly one of those sort of unique experiences that our players get to enjoy, even though it was a very hard day's work. The fact that we got to the stage where we could take over Abbey Road for a day and finish an album in one day, although obviously the editing and mixing and mastering took a lot longer than that. But the actual recording process, to do it in one day to get this album done, was an incredible feat and a great experience for everyone. We had done a concert the day before with the Castletown Orchestra from Ireland, who we'd invited to London. So we got all the repertoire played the day before, or most of the repertoire played the day before, which sort of helped. So we hit the studio in sort of good shape to get things done. But the players dealt with it incredibly well. So, pretty much all of them, it was their first experience of being in a big recording studio like that, playing with cans on, having things like a couple of movements of things. We had click tracks going in the cans just to make sure that the percussion, who were in separate booths so the players couldn't see the percussionists, to make sure the percussion and the orchestra were together with the click tracks. So it's an incredible set of experiences. Also, for me it was great having Matthew Scott, who we talked about earlier, the composer of Carnival, who came along for the whole day and sat in the control room through the glass and was talking to me in my cans, just telling me when he thought we'd got a good take of each section, of each movement, or when we had to go again on something, or when was a good time to move on. Because with his vast experience of recording at Abbey Road and all over the world, he could help guide me on where we were at with what we had in the can. So it was, for everyone, including me, it was a great experience, I think.
Ian, it's been a pleasure recording the podcast with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam.
Once the recordings had been mixed and the album was printed, it was officially released on December the 1st at the Union Chapel concert, where the orchestra performed tracks from Flight as part of the Daylight Music series. Thanks for listening, and until next time, it's goodbye from us.
You've been listening to the London Accordion Orchestra podcast. For more information, visit our website www.londonao.co.uk.